everyone. Welcome back to Surviving and Thriving, where we talk about IC, correlating conditions, and chronic pain. And I'm really excited to have another episode. And
Hi everyone, my name is Belkis. I have gastroparesis among any other more chronic illnesses.
um, so can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am currently 24, um, and my life changed in a blink of an eye. I have various chronic conditions um, that definitely rocked my world. um, and I have basically gastroparesis, that is, your stomach is paralyzed, as well as intestinal dysmotility, where as well your intestines are somewhat paralyzed as well. Basically, my entire GI tract from beginning to end is very, very slow and almost non functional. Um, I have dysautonomia and I have hypotension. So, with that comes symptoms like blacking out, fainting, um, very, very low blood pressures that we are unable to control, um, as well as low sugar. Um, and I recently received the diagnosis of autonomic autoimmune ganglionopathy. It's a very long name. But basically, what it means is that everything that your body's supposed to do without you telling it to, it's not working for me. So regulating temperature, blood pressure, um, the beats of your heart, right? Like you're not supposed to tell your heart how to beat, but my body right now, the signals is they're not sending the right message.
Thank you for sharing like a bit more about your diagnoses, and I'm sorry that you're going through all that, but it's nice to see the smile on your face, and I'm so grateful that you're coming on to share your story and kind of just elaborate on what helps you. So, my next question is, what's something that has shaped you for like who you are today, and what is some advice you'd like to give people going through similar diagnoses or conditions?
Yeah, of course. So, you know, um, I think everyone has their own story on how they got diagnosed, and the way you cope with things really comes with how you ended up here, right? I feel like we have different um, perspectives, and mine was very peculiar because um, I didn't have any warning symptoms. I didn't have like months of pain to try to find the right doctor, trying to get diagnosed. I wasn't seeking that. And what really happened was I went to sleep and I woke up with excruciating pain and diarrhea and vomiting. And for 2 months, right from the start, when I woke up, it was like 2 hours, and I was like, this is something that I've never felt before. I had never had any gastric related symptoms. I was never gluten or lactose intolerant. At any point in my life, I enjoyed food. I was a foodie. I was very healthy. And at this time, I was 20 years old. I went to the ER and I was admitted for 2 weeks and transferred to another hospital and was there for like about a month and a half where I ended up having a surgery. And I remember during that time it got worse. Um, so I had like cyclical vomiting literally 1 to 2 times each hour without a miss. And I ended up having a surgery. They thought it was my gallbladder, but it wasn't.
Oh.
Um, and then I remember getting out of the surgery and vomiting. And there's nothing worse than vomiting after surgery. It is so painful. I was honestly during that stay, I was very unconscious most of the time. So I just know that it was a very hard time, but I don't really recall much of it. And so with that experience, I remember something that really marked me was the time that the doctor came in. My mom was next to me, and he said, "This is chronic." And I had never heard that word before. I've never heard the word chronic. And I just looked at my mom, and my mom looked scared. And I just knew it was a bad word. Like, there's no way this means anything good. And I just started crying, and I asked my mom, "What does chronic mean? Like, what does it mean? Like, I was kind of lost and I was just crying. And for the following months, the way I coped with this was really bad. I wasn't coping at all. I was able to be dismissed from the hospital with the diagnosis of gastroparesis only at this time. Um, and at that time, the severity of the gastroparesis was extremely severe. I went from tolerating everything to nothing in a day. So not even my own saliva. It was very drastic. It wasn't like, oh, just certain foods or anything like that. It was from 0 to 100 in a night. And that was a lot for me to take in. Like, that was very, very drastic. Honestly, I don't know. We all, like I said, we all have like different perspectives. I'm very aware of the people that have to fight to get a diagnosis. Um, so it's very hard, but I got into therapy to be able to cope with this. I was about to start my bachelor's at the time, and that's where like everything kind of, gets very difficult because we have plans, we have dreams, right? We have ideas on how our future looks like, what we want, what we're going to fight for. And at that time, I was about to enroll in my bachelor's, and thank God I had enrolled in online, but I was able to get through it. Um, and I remember thinking to myself, what's going to happen? And for some reason, I was like, this is going to last 3 months. And then 3 months would go by, and it was the same situation, if not worse. And then I was like, how's life going to look like in 3 months? And it was just like that, me trying to maintain some sort of positivity, but I was also fighting the toxic positivity that sometimes we get from family members or even ourselves sometimes, because we feel the symptoms, right? We feel what we're going through, and it's kind of hard to be like, oh, nothing's happening, but like I'm vomiting, you know? So at the end of the day, what really kept me going was God, and be able to rely on my faith, be able to believe that there was a purpose in that suffering. And I just kept thinking to myself, there's no way that my life just changed so drastically. I thoughts like, I don't deserve this, what have I done, like, this is too much. And as the months went by, I kept on accumulating more diagnoses, and I was like, this is not looking good. This is not looking good. And I remember this was back in 2022. And I remember 2024, I recently told my gastroenterologist, I was like, 2024 was my best year. That was my best year. My best year because I was able to walk, simple things like that, right? I was able to walk. I was able to walk a little bit, more without needing so much help. I remember being able to maintain my weight, which is a huge factor. I was able to drink water, appreciating those like little things, right? That for anybody else is like normal, but for us it's like really important. They're very crucial on determining like whether you're doing good in your health or you're doing bad. Um, there was a lot of pain. I remember in the beginning I would panic, like a lot. I would press the panic button every single time I would feel a symptom. which was pretty often. So basically, I was on panic mode the entire day. Um, but I remember that that was a very huge factor I had to fight. And until this day, actually, like fear is it's a big thing. You know, you start fearing normal things like, should I go out? And if I go out, what's going to happen? How is it going to affect me? If I eat this, if I eat too much, if I eat too little, if I drink too much water, did I drink it too fast? And your mind just plays
Hmm.
so many games on you. Um, and you're constantly battling with that. And I feel like that is such a like a strong thing. So for something that has been helpful for me is thinking, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I mean, I've already almost died. I've vomited. I have had nausea. I've had, so many ER trips. What is the worst that can happen? And I come up with an answer, and I'm like, okay, you've already gone through that before. I understand you don't want to go through it again, but, you know, what's worse, right now, for example, during my last admission back in October, I was being pushed the idea of getting a feeding tube, and I I said no. I said just like let me think about it. I was also very scared to make the wrong decision. To me, that was a big decision. It's a surgery. It's something that's going to be that leaves a mark on you. But more than that, it was just like the recovery time for me, the idea of visually seeing that it's just a lot. Um, it's not like you're gonna have it for a week and that's it, you know. So they ended up doing an NJ tube, so it's through your nose all the way into the beginning of your intestines, and that was the worst experience ever. It was so bad. Um, they had to, as they were putting it in, they had to reaccommodate it like 5 different times. So
Mhm.
it was just very uncomfortable and a little bit painful. Um, but through that, I had fear, right? Fear constantly. And definitely one thing that has helped me through the process of fearing, because at the end of the day, there's not much we can do with our conditions that are chronic. Like, it's not like you can take a medication and it's going to go away. Like, medically speaking, there's nothing we can do. So at the end of the day, um, the, the, the decision on whether how you're going to cope with it, it's in your mind. So the way we see things, the way we decide to react to whatever is happening, I feel like at the end of the day, it is a decision on how you decide how to live this part of your life, which is so hard and it takes so much time. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be intentional on how you want to feel too. And it's validating how you're feeling and choosing what to do with those feelings. You know?
I love everything that you shared. First, I want to say that, and you've been through a lot. It sounds like it's been a roller coaster. As chronic pain, it's a variety of many different things. It looks different for everybody. But I just want to say you're a warrior. I think it's amazing that you're pushing through, staying positive, and your fear, it's very normal feeling. And please don't beat yourself up about that because I've beat myself up a lot about fear because I feel the same way, especially with my bladder. Like, my friends can go hours without using the bathroom, and me, I'm like going every minute. So I'm like, oh man, I wish I could do that, or I'm fearing it. But what you said puts it into perspective. It reminds me that we're all going through something, even if we don't have chronic pain. And even though it's debilitating sometimes, it is good to look at the wins and the positives in your life. Like you said, just being able to have water, being able to go outside, being able to walk. Like that's a good reminder to all of us to be grateful for what we have. And sometimes our worlds are rocked, man. And it's not easy. And I'm glad that you talked about God and your faith I'm also a believer in God, and I know how sometimes when we do have that fear, it feels impossible and you feel isolated and alone. But when God's with you, you feel that presence. You feel like you're not alone and you can get through this. And, it's not about pretending that you're okay. It's not about acting like those feelings aren't there. It's about recognizing this sucks. And it's okay for it to suck, but God's with me, and life is not going to be perfect. It's not going to look, like a movie, and that's okay. And I also think it's important for all of us to know, like you said, that if there's nothing medical that they can do, there's still hope for you, but it is also about perspective. It's about finding the wins and finding what's working for you, because it's not going to look the same for all of us. So my other question is, what is something you wish more people understood about you and your experience with all of this?
I feel like I wish people would understand um, and be more empathetic. I feel like um, it's hard for the people around us to really grasp, what's happening to us. Um, I don't blame them. I mean, I have a hard time myself. I have a hard time myself, understanding and, the process of even adapting to this lifestyle is pretty hard. But the people around us also are going through their own process. Um, Personally speaking, my mom is my caretaker. You can see me right now, and I feel like within the community, we can kind of understand that putting on makeup and doing your hair and putting on a nice shirt, it's pretty easy. And definitely thank God for makeup, right? Because right now, otherwise, you would be seeing a raccoon. um, but it's really easy to put on makeup and do your hair and take a shower in the sense that it will make you look good. It will make you look good, but that doesn't mean that we are feeling good. I can smile and I can laugh with you because I enjoy the time, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not actively feeling nauseous. And it's pretty hard for someone because for other people, when healthy people are feeling nauseous, they react to it immediately because it's not something that they're used to. And they will be like, oh my God, I'm nauseous, like my tummy hurts, and they will start acting very sick, and they will be like, no, I can't go because I'm in pain, you know, because they don't feel that every day. They don't feel that all day, every day. And at some point, we build the tolerance, right, to go through it and push through. And I wish more people understood the idea of what actually means to be chronically ill, and that comes with invisible illness. Um, and honestly, it's really hard because they're seeing something in my face right now. You're seeing something in my face. Um, and I can tell you that today was a very rocky morning for me. And yesterday too. I've had a really bad flare for the past 3 days, but we pushed through. And I feel like I just want to applaud everyone that is listening, and that, you're chronically ill, or we all have this invisible illness. And honestly, I applaud us for being able to push through because it's not easy. Um, because you have to be able to build a tolerance to it. And it's not easy because we know that there's no cure, right? It's kind of hard. You're
Mhm.
living with a sentence. That I feel like that's when God comes in, right? There has to be a purpose. There is a purpose. Just right now, like, Landy, I applaud you for being able to have this podcast because that is your purpose. And I feel like if we're able to give hope to just one person, then let it be. You know. So I wish people would be able to have more empathy towards us and being able to understand that, yes, sometimes I can do the laundry with no problem or little to no problem, and then the next time I do laundry, I'm able to just do half a load and that's it. And it's kind of hard, but yesterday you were just doing just fine. But no, like, I wish people would be able to have more empathy towards the roller coaster that is chronic illness, because it really is a roller coaster.
Well, I want to say I love the way you worded that. I think you're very good at explaining things in an in-depth way, but it makes sense for everybody. Doesn't matter what like walk of life you are. And I appreciate what you said about the podcast. I do truly think that God has led me to this, and I think for a long time I was angry at God because I was like, why would you give me this bladder condition when I already have all this other stress? And you start like blaming, and I'm not saying like that to judge myself or anybody that feels that way, but we all go through it. Even if you're not a believer in God, we all are like, why is this happening? What is the reason? And there is a purpose. And even though it is tough, like you mentioned, um, I do think there's a reason for everything. And I know that it eventually comes to light, but sometimes, man, it's hard. It's like, why is this happening? But I want to say too, um, it's good that you're being vulnerable and sharing that you've had rough days, and that even though you have a smile like you mentioned, you're going through all these different things. I think that's very brave of you to just be open about that, 'cause sometimes it's hard to be open about these chronic illnesses because like you said, it can be invisible to some people. They might not understand, they might not see it, so they might think, oh, it's not there. Or they might physically see it and just be like, oh, well, if they did this, things happen. We all have been there, but I think it is important to put it into perspective and to remember like you don't know what someone's going through behind closed doors, or just because you see something doesn't mean it's easy for them, or everything that they're going through. So what does growth look like for you at this stage in life?
Right now, what I'm looking to grow in, well, it is to continue to remain positive. I feel like that is like, I feel it's not as easy as just, smiling and laughing. I feel like it's something that we must be intentional about. Like I said before, there's just so much, there's so many reasons to be angry. There are so many reasons to be depressed. There's so many. There's so many. But we must find the joy in the midst of it. We must find the positive in the midst of it. And I feel like that is something that I try to work on, and I'm actively working on every day, um, because it goes hand in hand in the mind battle of or, or against fear. Because, like I said before, like fear is such a huge thing. And personally, like I was just talking about it earlier today. Uh, People that struggle with GI issues, and I mentioned it previously too, I believe, is I had panic over having a bowel movement. And he was like, I dreaded it. I was like, I need to have a bowel movement because otherwise it would be very, very painful. And having one would be excruciating painful. So I remember there were times where I would drag myself to the, like, on the floor to be able to get to the toilet because of the amount of pain that I had. And I would spend hours in the toilet, in the bathroom, just like in agony. I was able to beat that, and grow from that. And right now, thank God, I am no longer fearful of bowel movements. Not that they're not still painful, but I've gotten better. But right now, I'm looking to grow and to stop fear, having power. I was gonna say so much power, but actually having zero power over me. I feel like it is something that we fear because there's a reason, right? Like we know what's on the other side, which is pain and more pain. um, but it can definitely be very. Fear is a cage, you know. How that fear looks like for me is not being able to eat, you know? And then on the other side, it's like if I don't eat, then they threaten me with a feeding tube, and I don't want it. But I'm looking to grow into that because I definitely um, I am definitely waiting for my miracle. I genuinely believe that God is going to do something in my life, and I will be able to one day say, like, I don't know what happened, but I'm healed. In the name of Jesus, I'm healed. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now, I'm looking to grow and to stop being so fearful and not being stuck in what I'm in right now, and to be able to keep my progress going. Um, I am definitely not where I thought I would be 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 1 year ago. Um, but I hope that in a year from now, I can be better. And working on that every day is like, no, you know, the science, right, the medical environment says that I will be miserable for the rest of my life. That doesn't mean that I must think that I'm miserable for the rest of my life. We have, like I said, we have purpose, we have life. There are so many things. Not everyone is lucky to be able to have family members and a whole family supporting you. There was a time where it was just my mom and I, you know, um, going through this together, hand in hand. And I'm able to say that my dad came around, and I was able to have him as part of my support system. So I'm very lucky to have both of my parents being part of my support system, which definitely helps in your journey of growth.
Yes, you talking about laying on the bathroom floor. I like, well, it was about a year ago. Well, even the last 3 years, with my bladder condition, you get a lot of burning when you pee or constipation. And it's probably not to the degree of your severity, but there was points when I would literally sit on the toilet when I wasn't at work all day in pain, or kind of sitting on the ground, either throwing up or having like that painful, number two, like, so I kind of understand in a milder way, like how that feels to just feel like every day is the same and you're just dreading it. And now my life looks a lot different. Like, I still struggle, I still have, the symptoms, but I'm not spending every moment of every day in the bathroom. And I had to kind of look at that, and like you said, like, look at where you've come from and look at where you're going to go. And like, I try to look at it that way as well, because I could be in a completely different place in a year. And I truly do think you will get healing, and I will be praying for you. And I truly hope that you continue to have that mindset and that things continue to look up. Because, like you said, you can't listen to the doubt, you can't listen to the negative. You have to keep pushing, because just because a doctor says these are your odds does not mean that that's going to be the same for you or somebody else, especially if you have a faith, you have a belief that you will succeed in this. And maybe it won't look the way we think, maybe it'll be even better. And we're going to be a different version of ourselves our whole life, even without chronic pain. And I think having this adds like a whole other layer. And we're already figuring out life in your 20s, no matter what stage. So it's definitely a process. So my last question for you, I think, would be, what is your content about, and what is the message that you want people to receive?
Positivity, everybody, positivity. I feel like I am the type of person that definitely copes with humor. So I do a lot of, medical humor, and I do a lot of positive, definitely faith, also very real and relatable content that within the chronic illness environment and community. Um, because when I was at my lowest, that's the content that I looked, and I watched. Um, and the content creators that were real about chronic conditions, I looked up to them, and I still do, because honestly it's so hard to go through this and put a smile on, every day. And so the way I post with purpose, and I even though I post something that might be funny and humorous and relatable, I always go very deep in my captions, and try to leave an encouraging message, always with hope. There's one thing that we can't lose in this process is hope.
Well, thank you for coming on and just sharing everything and your wisdom. And I think a lot of people are going to be really appreciative of the message that you're sending. And as a fellow chronic pain girl, just know that you're not alone. Anyone listening, including you. And please go check out her content. I will put it in the bio whenever I post it. And I'm excited for everybody to listen in.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining Surviving and Thriving. Hope you all have a wonderful day.